Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am a food truck business coach and author of Food Truck 101, Beginner to Winner. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. All this week, I am talking to Carlos Beal from Profits by Mobile. We talk about his new product, an SMS-based magic coupon, and how it will help food truck owners grow their sales. Today, we talk about reading and then reading again. Kind of sticking along those same lines, a lot of people, nowadays, especially with what's happened in the last few years, a lot of bars are required to either sell food themselves or have a food truck on premises for them to be open to sell their alcohol.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah, there's still a few cities that are doing that. Definitely a couple of states still left doing that. But in any case, food truck owners go there and they have dollar signs in their eyes thinking that, oh, it's a bar, it's a brewery, and I'm going to be super busy because of the brewery. And they don't take into account that they're responsible for their own interactions with their own guest pool. If they don't have their own guest pool to bring to the brewery, to be absolutely honest, they haven't done enough legwork, enough homework to get people to come to their business no matter where they park. It shouldn't have to do with them sitting at a brewery. So the biggest concern that I have when folks, they'll call me up and say, I went to a brewery last Friday night and we only did $250. And my first question is, well, how many people did you let know you was going to be at the brewery in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't tell anybody because I thought I'd be too busy. Okay, so you depend upon the brewery to send people out to you. What incentive do they have to send people out to eat your food? If you're dependent upon the brewery to send you out customers, it's counterproductive for them to send out customers to you, because if they're going out to order food from you, they're not ordering drinks in the bar.
Well, if a brewery charges admission, they could give out your coupons.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing is, to go directly to what you're talking about, a lot of that can be alleviated just by standing out there and observing how many people walk by. How many people go? Do that for a day. It's worth one day doing that.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly right. Where was I? Oh, tell me about the worst job you've had. What made it the worst job?
Bill, I've got to tell you, I worked as a longshoreman at the Port of Houston back in the 60s. And I was very, very young and fit, of course, and back then, nothing was containerized. Everything came on pallets. Coffee was 250-pound sacks. Flour was a 50-pound sack. Rice might have been a 100-pound sack. Everything was sacks. Cotton came in 560-pound bales. You roll that around. But I say it was my worst job because it was extremely dangerous work. And I saw two men killed before my eyes. It really, well, let me put it like this. It made me decide that was not where I was going to make a career, period.
Yeah, definitely when you see something like that, it does make you re-examine your choices and go, maybe not.
Wasn't no maybe included. It was not.
Yeah, definitely not. It's the same thing, not as bad in our industry, but I've seen accidents that should never have happened. One of the first places that I worked for, we had meat slicers. So we sold roast beef and ham and turkey and that kind of thing. So a meat slicer is just a power-driven knife. But in order to clean it, you have to take the blade guards off of it. And that exposes 9-inch razor-sharp blade.
Ooh.
And, when you take the blade guards off and the carriage off, it's really just the blade.
Naked.
Yeah, it is. And it's there. It is absolutely there. And I saw somebody that was not really paying attention to what was going on around them. So we would take the blade guards and the carriage and stuff back into the kitchen, and then somebody else would wash the parts while we were cleaning the slicer. On this one particular night, they were kind of slow about getting the parts back up to us. So I went ahead and started sweeping and scrubbing and mopping the floor. So I had laid down all the water to scrub the floor, which makes, a floor in a restaurant super slick. And this was back before they invented anti-slip shoes. And somebody was coming through, and I don't know why they chose to come around my area, because it wasn't a direct path to where they needed to go, but they did. They slipped and they hit their head on that exposed blade.
Ooh.
And had to have, I don't remember how many stitches, but it was a bunch. And that was with the blade not even running. It was just there. And it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. And you just never want to have to deal with that. People that work with fryers too. There's all kinds of burn stories out there about, and what it boils down to is not paying attention to safety, because you get complacent.
I can imagine.
The first 2 years that I've worked, I had scars everywhere, because you're young and you're trying to hurry up and get done and go out and do other things rather than clean. And I had burns all up and down my arms.
Well, not only that, Bill, after you've been doing something for a while, you just assume that you know everything about it. You know how to do it automatically without in your sleep, and you're not as careful. You know, I had that.
For sure.
I had that situation occur when I learned how to work cotton on as a longshoreman. You know, and folks who knew how to do that were considered jewels. They were extremely valuable because they were paid by the piece.
Oh,
I only
really?
had to work. Oh yeah, I only had to work 3 days a week, and I'd make the same that I would make in 5 working
Right.
on cotton, working on a cotton gang.
Right.
You know, 15 cents a bale, but we charge 1,500 bales in a day.
Oh, wow. Piecework can be good if you understand how to leverage it in your favor.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it was the way that I was able to get on a cotton gang is because I actually prevented one of the foremen that was in the hold from getting a bale of cotton rolled over him and snapping his leg off at the hip. You know, so there's always a little something there that you can you know, that you think you know and you don't really know it.
Right. Yeah.
Because he should have known better.
Let's talk about the biggest influence in your career. Who was that?
You know, Bill, I would have to say my mother, and the reason I say that is because she grew up as a young Catholic girl. She made each of her 6 children learn a poem as soon as we could read, and I only say she was an avid reader, a writer as well. Never really published; she just wrote and gave it away to folks. But she made each of us learn a poem. And the name of that poem was If by Rudyard Kipling. It was written about 120 years ago. Anybody can find it on Google. But you know, even to this day, I remember certain stanzas from it, you know, and that were influential to me. May I quote one?
Sure, of course. Go ahead.
It's a 4-stanza poem. This is a couple of the stanzas, and actually one stanza. It goes like this: if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Every time I read that, it grabs me. Every time I think about it, it grabs me.
And it's good. And if we could teach that to the children today, we'd have a whole lot better world.
Oh yeah. Anyway, okay. That's all I'm gonna say for that.
Okay. No, you're good. I mean, I would much rather do business with somebody that actually has standards and emotions and understands people. Let's talk about, is this the only product that you have planned for food truck?
You know, it is the only product, but what I have are several modifications planned and improvements or augmented service aspects of it. I won't go into them right now because they're not done yet, and I don't really like talking about things. But yeah, we got some other good stuff coming down the pipeline, and you know, this is I think it'll be evolving constantly. I'm amazed at how much technology is advancing on a regular basis. Even the text message marketing industry, you know, is changing on a regular basis. Things are being invented and changed pretty quickly.
Yeah, things always seem to be in flux, no matter what business you're in.
Exactly. We'll be keeping up with it.
Tell me about just a couple of habits that you may have that help move your business forward.
There are actually only 3. I read, then read again, as I said before. The second is I go to bed early and I rise early. I'm usually in bed between 7 and 9. I'm up in the morning, usually between 4:30 and 6 o'clock, and that does me just fine. And the third is that I just get it done. Whatever it is that I'm going to do for that day, I wake up with it on my mind. Matter of fact, during the first couple of hours that I'm awake, from a creativity standpoint, those are some of my most productive, because I'll wake up and lay in the bed and send emails to myself about ideas that I have. Mm-hmm. And then after I'm done with that, I'll go in and get done what I had on my plate for the day, you know, and I find that has worked very, very well for me. And I guess another practice that I do is that I do my reading just before I go to bed. And I actually, I was actually quite proud on one of your posts. One of your students asked about. Well, actually, they had just gotten your book club, and they had just gotten Food Truck 101. And I put in the comments, I said, "Oh, great!" I said, "You know, read again just before you go to bed. Don't try to process it or anything like that. Just read it." And then I said, because a lot of the processing will automatically go on in your mind while you're asleep. And then read it again. And lo and behold, I'm amazed. I got a lot of likes and hearts and things like that. I was very proud of that. I said, "Oh, goodness gracious, man." I said, "I'm making a contribution here." I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I read the comment. It was
did
nice to see that. out of the habits that you mentioned, definitely reading. Yeah, I do the same thing. And I certainly expect other people to read well beyond my book because there's a ton of good books out there. But I also like, especially, get it done, get out there and take action. Because it's one thing to read about a book and read about a subject, but unless you go apply it, this doesn't do you a lot of good.
Yep. Yep.
Since we're talking about books, tell me what you like to regularly read and what you would recommend for somebody just getting started in business.
Bill, I read business books. I'm sitting in my library right now, and just turning around. My library, and by the way, this is a habit, man. You grow up and you watch mom collect books. My library is very wide and varied, but all has a focus either on business in some shape, form, or fashion, whatever the aspect of business that you can possibly think of. But I'll tell you what, for folks for your students, I'm going to recommend two books that I've found that I've read several times, and also that I've found to be the most durable over time in terms of the information that you learn from them. Number one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I don't care where you go or what you do, somebody's going to talk about that. And the second one is, from a purely business standpoint, is Drucker's Management, Peter Drucker's Management Tasks and Responsibilities. And I say those two because the concepts in each are just timeless, but also you will discover that they're very, very true. From the time of street vendors back in the days, thousands of years ago, to now, you will find that it's always the same. Those are the things you got to do, things you got to pay attention to, man.
Oh, you're exactly right. Peter Drucker's book, he's written a handful of books.
Oh, yeah.
I had to, when I very first got into management, this would have been in the late 70s, I guess. The company that I worked for expected us to, they called them objectives, and you had to write a personal objective to help you become a better manager, a better business person. And they had a lot of different ideas that you could follow. And one of them, in my mind, the easiest was just to read a book. And then give a little report about it or whatever. I don't remember the exact thing we had to do. We did have to read a book. And the office that we had, the corporate office, had a library, several hundred books in it, and the managers could go and borrow the book and read it. And that was one of them. And I remember thinking to myself, why are you having me read something that has nothing to do with a restaurant? Why is this even a part of the library? And then I was thinking, well, why aren't you teaching me these things? And then it took me a while to figure it out. But pretty much anything that you read that has to do with business, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the business you're in, but it's going to give you that inspiration and that little spark of creativity where you go, oh, well, that makes sense. I can apply this in this particular manner. That's one of the reasons why I'm talking to you today. We're not talking a whole lot about food truck in general, but I hope that all the things that we've talked about kind of inspire people to go, well, hey, I can take that and run with it, or I can, give these guys a call and either buy my books or get into your marketing program with the magic coupon and, improve their business. So you've always got to be looking for those opportunities, and you just never know where you're going to find them, whether it be in some dusty old book somewhere or listen to a modern podcast. Who knows?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? That's why you keep your eyes open.
Thank you so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all of the information helpful to your food truck business, please consider becoming a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the links in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We have a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from just starting to decades-old veterans. They're all there to help each other grow successful food truck businesses. And again, thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow, because I got plenty more to say about helping you and your food truck business grow.